Hi, I'm Gemma, and this is a chat with Gemma. So I'm going to talk loudly because I still haven't sorted out the putting the external microphone into this new computer. You know how every time you get a new computer, ah, there are different little, holes in different places now, and they need different kinds of leads and whatnot to make it work. So haven't worked that out yet. May not be able to use it. Anyway, I'll just have to talk loudly. So I thought I'd broach the subject of nervousness, of being nervy. And I've been trying to work out a way to do that, given that I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist. But it's a big topic, yes. But I think the more we talk about it, the more, people talk about it publicly, the better it is, because if you have nervousness, and probably everybody does, about something, at least to some degree, you tend to feel embarrassed about it, and you want to hide it and not admit to it. And you try to, push yourself through it and things like that. And so sometimes when you find somebody that you trust to talk about it to, invariably they can share something that they have a problem with, and everybody's different, of course. So you can find somebody who can abseil down a cliff without batting an eyelid, but yet, I don't know, when it comes to speaking in front of a group of people, let's say, or something like that, they get really nervous. So I was never a nervous child. I was probably pretty laid back. I had certain things I was afraid of, very much afraid of. I was afraid of hell. That's a big one, isn't it? And, but I was probably a bit lazy, a bit hard to get going. But I became nervous because probably of parenting and certain experiences that I had. So they say that, your disposition is probably 80% genetic. And, we do see it in animals, don't we? I'm sure you've, bought a dog or a horse or something, and you find that, they're very nervy, or maybe they're the opposite. They're just really laid back and you want to go for a gallop and you can barely get them into a trot. Just not excitable at all. So, yeah, again, there's some experience and some, nurture, as they call it, the way you're raised. But mostly it seems to be genetics. And, of course, if you are nervy, probably you've inherited it from one or maybe both of your parents, or perhaps it goes back to your grandparents, I don't know. And so then they've raised you in a nervy way. So there's the way they've raised you. Now, my parents weren't particularly fearful or nervy, but my mother had, I don't know, she had a love of the macabre. She just did. And, like, for example, when I was, grown up and moved out of home, and I'd come to visit the family and walk through the door, I'd be no sooner through the door than it'd be, "Oh, Gemma, do you know Jemima Smith?" And I'd be going, "No." "Oh, what about her sister Carol Smith?" "No, I don't think so. I think one of them was in your grade." "Oh, anyway, their mother died." You think, well, I could have gone to my grave without ever knowing that. Wouldn't have made any difference. But now my day has been kind of, the mood has been lowered, thinking of somebody losing their mother now. And I could have remained happy and relaxed as I was when I walked through the door. But no, so this is what I got all the time. And I would, there was no way you could talk her out of it. She just kept doing that. And I was going through a really difficult time once when I had depression and I was really stressed at work. And I said, Mum, when you talk about those things, I just get depressed. It really brings me down. Just my mood goes down. Can you please, please, please not talk about them? And then the next second she'd start to tell me a story, or the story that she'd started to tell me and I tried to stop her, she'd go anyway and then continue on and tell me the story. So she loved death. She loved accidents. So, oh, did you hear about the man on the TV? He got run over by a tractor and then this didn't happen, by the way, I'm making it up. And then he got caught up in the wheels and went round and round and round, and then his gizzards were all over the road. And no, I didn't, and I'm never going to watch TV again now. Why did I need to know that? So that's the upbringing I had. So I kind of developed this idea that I had to be very watchful and all of that, looking left and right all the time. Now, there is there's a value in that. There's a value in being a careful person and a scared person, maybe in that you're the one that's going to think, oh, I think this plane's about to explode. I'm going to get up and, slide out that thing down at the door, when everybody else is just sitting there like stunned mullets. And I'm talking about a situation that actually happened. You'd be one of the ones that would be safe. So there's a value to it, but at the same time, there's that level, isn't there, with everything, where you can just go over the top, and then it can turn into an illness. So people can have anxiety, depression, panic disorder, and various other things. Now, they're not seen as a mental illness like schizophrenia or, bipolar or something like that. They're seen as a mental disorder, so you've kind of developed it. But, I think I don't know, probably for some people that's a bit blurry. So it's seen as a mental disorder or emotional disorder. Now, you can, if you're going right now through a bad episode of perhaps being to the point where you're, quite ill, you can get over that. But I think if you've got a nervy disposition, then probably you're going to have to just work with that forever. Now, some people, go and get prayed for and they have a miraculous recovery. That hasn't happened to me. However, I've had lots of prayer, and then I've had, read a lot of books, and I've had counselling and things like that. And you put them all together, talking to people. Sometimes you just find this person that you can talk to that's really a really good person to talk to. You add them all together, and somehow or other, you just do get better. Back to work, back to full function and whatever it is that you want to do. However, and again, I'm not medically trained, putting it in my words, you do create brain paths. So if you go far enough into this, you get brain paths created, is my understanding of it. So whereas before maybe you got ill, you would never have a certain thought or would never be worried by a certain thing, now you've kind of learned to do it. So you've got a brain path in your brain that will just take you straight to nervousness. So, whatever it is, you see a dog, let's say, and whereas that wouldn't have worried you previous to this episode, now you see a dog and you go into immediately, like instantly almost, into anxiety, depression, whatever it is, panic, whatever. And that's very hard to undo. So I fully recommend, if you're starting to go to what you think might be a nervous breakdown, you're burnt out, you're starting to get anxious thoughts or depressed thoughts, preventing yourself from going any further is so much better than the cure, for the reasons I've just gone into, the brain paths. So stopping that right now stops all that happening, and if you get help, the right help and enough help soon enough, you just might not go there, you know. It's sometimes we try to be too brave in life and kind of push through, and then you've got more of a problem afterwards. So one of the books I'd like to talk about that I found very helpful is this book I'm going to show you. I've still got it, and again, I'm not getting any money for doing this or any perks or anything like that. The person who wrote this has unfortunately died, and I believe she was an Australian psychiatrist. The book is called Self-Help for Your Nerves. Sorry about the bit of light shining on it. Self-Help for Your Nerves by Claire, with an E on the end, Weeks, with an ES on the end. Self-Help for Your Nerves. Now, I haven't looked recently, but I looked a while ago, and I think I found that it was still available. But if you have to get it secondhand, just get it secondhand. I just found it really good because she's so lovely. She's just a darling, the way she writes. And I mean, I'm talking about her in the present tense, even though she's died. But it just talked about so many of the things that for me were really weird, like heart palpitations and this sort of thing, the funny breathing and stuff like that, and explained it all. And I'm like, where was this book before? You know, I just felt so much less abnormal and so much less alone. Oh, somebody understands this stuff. And she even understands some of the kind of the actual thoughts that you go through. And just found it, and again, I'm talking from personal experience. You might read it and say, nah, didn't do anything for me. But for me, there's a few little tricks in there that I still use today, and I just found really useful. So I'd like to recommend that to anybody who's, you know, feels like they're on the edge of a nervous breakdown. It's really good if you can steer yourself back sooner rather than later. All right, I hope this helps, and bye for now.